What is up, y'all? So today, hey, another antique. Just popping out antiques left and right. This was sent in to us. Beautiful, beautiful sliding door lock. Just look at that really close in the light. Look at that. That is pretty awesome. Yes. And we're gonna make keys for it. I've actually made one key, so we're gonna go through the process of making the second key on these. But first, let's take a look inside to see what we're dealing with. So again, these are sliding door locks. Let's see that. That one is not keyed. It looks like it's missing the bolt, but it doesn't use a key, so I guess they just leave the bolt out. I wish they would have capped that. It would have made it look better. This is the trim that goes into the cutout recess of the door. Let's take a look at it. Beautiful kind of scroll work design there. So that's what you would see from the front of the door, and this is what would be on the edge. We've got keys made for it. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So this is a key that we got to cut down. This is one that we just cut down. As far as making the keys, it is just a simple one lever lock, so that is no big deal. However, there are some considerations that we have to take into account for this particular one. But we can see, you know, you got a sliding door, which is flush pocket door, some people call them. Boom, look at that. And then you pull the door and then push that back in. Boom. Boom. Anyway, I just love playing with that mechanism. But yes, we needed a key to extend the bolt. With the key to extend the bolt, you're able to lock the door down. Pocket door locks are pretty, most of them, the ones that are, you know, worth anything, the decent quality ones are always just terribly expensive. Just terribly expensive. So let's take a look in here and see. Oh, I didn't mean to tighten that screw down that much. Just what is going on. Now, you will notice with the keys I have out, and looking at it, when you begin to make a key, we see how it has kind of flared out sides. Unfortunately, I didn't have any of those that were tall enough. So I did have to use, you know, the narrow blade. However, if you will notice one thing, that this post is really fat. So when you're measuring these keys, you have length, you have width, you have width of the blade, height of the blade. From this stop to where it starts, we see on this one, it's always pretty thin, and that's because this part is what stops there. And that's what basically guides it into the hole. So if you tried, if I had not cut down this side, which we'll do when we cut the other key, it would not turn. So I did have to make that wider, and we can see just how much was cut off this key. Again, I had to use this really big whopping key because it's really the only one that I had that was both high enough and that had this fat shank, which is pretty important because as you put the key in, if you have a smaller diameter post right there, it's wobbly, and then as you go to turn, it's just wobbly. So I had to find one that was both tall enough and fat enough to stay in that hole so that it would not basically fall down into here, make it really hard to turn the key. But as we can see, you push this button in, and it's a simple fulcrum, I guess you could say, just pushing that out. The customer thought that was supposed to be spring-loaded, but it does not appear to be. There's nowhere really to be able to put a spring in. Ooh, get back in there. Once again, see how it's dangerous to do that with locks when they're open. But as far as the key goes, it is a simple one lever lock. We see the lever is kind of behind this, and when you press up, well, let's just do it with the key, right? So it grabs, it bypasses the, whatever you call that thing, and then it lifts up that center and moves it out of the way so that it can go forward. So the three important things here are, is it's fat enough to be able to provide the stability. The blade's long enough for it to throw it out all the way. Say if the blade was not long enough, it would have not thrown it out, and this would have stopped right there. It just caused issues altogether. And let's put this back on. Again, I should not have done that with it open. There we go, we're holding it. And what was the third thing? What was the third thing? Oh, that it's narrow enough. We have to trim it down to be narrow enough to fit in the case. So again, that's what it does once we get our key successfully made. See, there we go. Gotta make sure it throws it all the way. I'm not holding the key straight, so when the cap's on the other side, we'll see. You see how it's kind of like you're able to hold it like at an angle, so that was what is making it look like it's not working. But if we put the cap back on here and you put your key in, the fat post right there basically stabilizes itself when you turn the key, and we can see it's beautiful from both sides. So now let's go put it back. Let's go ahead and get this other key made. And basically what we're doing is just trimming it down to the width that we have already deduced here. We can see where that lever is kind of hitting that. Technically this key probably could have been a little bit higher, and then you could cut down each side. However, there's no ill effects with it doing that. It'll just be good. And also, I don't expect that to be used like every day. Most of the time they're not. But we can see here, and it's easy to do. Once you get the first key made, it's a lot easier to accomplish, because basically I can trim out this outline with a Sharpie and then just cut it down as needed. Whereas before I had to keep going back and forth until I got it just wide enough, just long enough, and then smoothed it out. Now, of course, this one is pretty much all smoothed out. Kind of hit the flat right there on the bench grinder when I was cutting it, but I did try to round it off, and also knocked off the rest of that shoulder. So let's get started making this key. First, I'm gonna put this back in. Now that we know what we're doing, there's no need to take it apart again. Also, the length of the key is pretty important. I did check with the customer to find out how thick the door is, because it's got to go through this and into this. So basically, that's what we have right there. All right, and then unlock or lock, and then unlock, and then pull our key out. Anyway, let's go make this key. So for this, I'm going to be using the bench grinder and a couple of flat files. Here we need to go ahead, kind of sketch out where it needs to be, just to save time. I could hand do it again. Oh, let's see, let's go ahead and take that off right there. Turn it around, go down to about there, and about there, and about there. Oh. And as we're cutting, we'll still kind of fit it to the lock as we go, so that we don't cut it too narrow or too short or any of those. Alright, at this point we're going to let it cool down for just a second because it's hot as heck. But we will compare it to that. That's good. Because we're going to take the rest down with, woo hot, with these two. So, be right back. Before we move over to hand filing, I did notice that we're still a little bit high, so let's take it down. Once again, we're going to check. Left, just touching up this backside. As we can see, it works decent. It's a little tight. I can hear it rubbing inside the case right there, but it may clear up once I do the side that I need to do, because when we do it the other way, it hits just barely right there. Nope, right there. Sorry. Yeah, that's where it's hitting. Easily cleared up. Let's go ahead and knock this down a little bit. Do the rounding, which I've already started just a bit. Round it off there. so that we have a nice curve. See, it's just to curve over a little bit, so let's put it this way. A little bit more. There we go. That's about it. Touch up this a little bit. Put some little rounded strokes across the front. There we go. And lastly, just give it a check. Not scraping on the case anymore. Throwing that out fully. Still not working on that side very well. Let's go ahead and just take it down real quick. Still just a bit tight. This is the fine-tuning part of key making. If you actually look at it, if you were doing this outside the door, you could actually see where it's rubbing. Right there and at the top. So just a few file strokes later, and we have our perfect operating key. Don't forget to hit that part a little bit. Make sure it stops like it's supposed to. Make sure it throws out all the way and throws in all the way. And of course, make sure it works both ways from both sides. And I might need to tighten the screw down a bit. Yeah, there we go. Just make sure the screw is tight before you start, because that affects the width. That's it. So, time to get this packed up. Ready to go back to its door to live happily being locked and unlocked with the new keys. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments on this video or any other antiques, you can email us at selockandkey@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Make sure and hit that like and subscribe if this type of stuff fascinates you. Thanks for watching, y'all. Have a great one. To clarify, the only real point I would see in having a spring here, when you push that button in, it throws it out, and you just pull the handle, close the door, and then as the door, grab the pull handle that you had provided, and you pull it, and it pushes in that. I don't see any real need for that to be spring-loaded at all, unless it's pointing down where gravity would pull it down. And at that point, you may want a spring to hold it out, but I don't see any indication of a spring being on there, period. And if it was, it would only provide, like I mentioned, a positive click. So when it went out, it would maybe hold that into position, and then as you push that, as that got pushed back in, it would snick back into this position. But this is rounded right here, so if it did go over this and then somehow either pressed in right there or right there, I don't see why it would be really effective in most situations. Because if that had spring pressure on it, it makes it harder to push that in as the door closes. So I'm not really sure.